Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news mashup video today, starting with WBO mandatory Oleksandr Uysk, who has reaffirmed his position. He wants his title shot and he doesn't want to wait or step aside, because there has been a narrative from some fans suggesting that Usyk could step aside if a fight between Joshua and Tyson Fury was available, but not the case. So his manager, Alexander Krasjuk, says Usyk has been the WBO mandatory challenger for more than 1 year. He's agreed to let AJ vs Pulev happen with regards that the winner fights him next. The statement is still solid. Our plan is A, beat Derek Chisora, B, push AJ to comply with WBO rules or vacate the title, C, defeat AJ or any other WBO champion or contender and become the heavyweight champion. Simple and practical. And he goes on to tell Sky Sports, according to our latest talks with Eddie, Usyk and Chisora has to go ahead at the end of October. Still much depends on COVID-19 restrictions, but we all want to make it happen. So a clear signal. Not getting out of the way, there won't be a step aside, and he expects that he will be facing Anthony Joshua if he beats Kubrat Pulev or whoever is holding the title. And just to clarify, so he became the WBO mandatory challenger via his super champion status at cruiserweight. So I know that there is a lot of fans that believe he hasn't done enough to earn a title shot, but he did his work at cruiserweight, and the rules state for the WBO that he's entitled to a direct shot at the champion in the weight class above. And obviously this has been a long time in the making. Some of it, though, is down to delays caused by the pandemic, and he also had a bit of a delay sort of getting into the heavyweight division in terms of action. Just one fight under the ledger so far, Chaz Witherspoon, but there is talk of a fight with Derek Chisora for October the 31st. Previously they had been scheduled to fight in May in 2020, but obviously that had been delayed. So October the 31st, that is just penciled in at this point, not concrete, because they're looking for fans for that event. But judging there by Krasjuk's statements, perhaps if that date comes and goes, maybe he will just go straight to a title shot. That is also a possibility. Meanwhile, Dillian Whyte, who recently lost to Alexander Povetkin in stunning fashion, he has told IFL TV that he's already started training for a rematch with Povetkin for later this year. So in an interview, he said he's back in Portugal on his own and has had his first session after a week's rest. And Whyte had stated immediately after the fight he wanted to run that rematch right back and had mentioned November or December. And in another interview, Eddie Hearn, Whyte's promoter, has says that they are planning the rematch for November 14th or 21st in London, adding that Hughie Fury or Dave Allen, he wants to have them on the card. But the stuff regarding Dillian Whyte, and he's also got a couple of other comments I'll get to, November 21st or November 14, that obviously feels, to me at least, that that's going to roll round very quickly. And I actually did a piece on Patreon just over the weekend, sort of just musing about this potential rematch. Is this sort of rivalry going to be some sort of shades of Tony Thompson and David Price? Because this feels awfully quick for a rematch. This guy was knocked out in brutal fashion. Is this too soon? Because it's not to say that Dillian Whyte won't be in the fight and can't win that fight, but to me it does raise some questions about, will there be any carryover effects physically, perhaps even mentally, especially this soon. But obviously Dillian Whyte feels confident that this was some sort of aberration, but as did David Price after he was stopped by Tony Thompson the first time. So there will be people debating this, no doubt, about the how wise it is to have that fight so soon after this first fight. But Dillian Whyte, he is telling everyone he wants it, he's okay, and he's now back in the gym. And just on some of the people that were taking a pound of flesh out of him after that loss, he sort of stated of Andy Ruiz Jr., Andy Ruiz is glad that he don't have to fight me. He's glad the only battle he's got now is just with diabetes. I'm not on him anymore. He's glad. Diabetes he can overcome, but he can't overcome me. And there is some irony with those sorts of statements, because the reason that Ruiz and others have come after Whyte so hard is because he comes after them so hard in public. And those sorts of comments just sort of stoke the fires and obviously keep beefs alive and people sort of taking score to deliver something in public later on, as Ruiz did. So, yeah, Dillian Whyte back on his trash-talking form. And a previous heavyweight opponent of Dillian Whyte, Joseph Parker, has revealed that he called Whyte after that fight, saying, "I watched the fight, I gave Dillian a call straight after, and he said he was okay. He realizes that in heavyweight boxing, one punch can change everything, and that's certainly what happened. I video called Eddie just after the fight and asked him to give me Povetkin or even Whyte. He told me to smash Junior Farr first and that he would look at one of those two for me. I want to fight everyone in the top 5, but I need to climb the ladder to get back to the top. I want to be champion of the world, a 2-time champion of the world, and a unified champion. I've given myself 5 years, and then I'm out." And if I recall correctly, previously Joseph Parker had stated he'd like to retire by the age of 30 or 31. He recently turned 28, so shifting the goalpost, but I guess with some of the money that has been offered on offer in the heavyweight division, and getting back to the mountaintop as he would like to do, 5 years seems more realistic to achieve a lot more in the sport, especially in terms of getting a few more paydays and adding to his legacy. And just on a potential fight with Junior Farr and Joseph Parker, David Higgins has revealed that gloves and the selection of gloves is now one of the things being haggled over. Higgins telling Newshub in New Zealand it's a deal breaker. It'd be like the World Cup final handing out everyone a Kiwi cricket bat and saying, "Here you go, boys, we're using the same plastic bat." So at issue is that the Junior Farr team would like both fighters to wear the same gloves. Higgins continues saying, "That's maybe how the UFC works, but it's not how boxing works. We're just not going to change the norms and the conventions and the history of boxing to please the Junior Farr camp." Whereas Junior Farr's team, Mark Cadell, his manager, says, "Gloves are one of those battlegrounds of fairness. We think it's pretty fair. I think the rest of New Zealand public would think it's pretty fair, wouldn't they? If you want to have a 2020 match, Farr vs Parker, happy days, use a different bat. But we're talking about a boxing fight, aren't we? Everything's really even in the UFC. It pits two men against each other, and that's what we want." And just on that potential fight, it looks like it is going to get over the line and be scheduled for later in 2020 in New Zealand. Because Parker's trainer Kevin Barry has, in an interview, said that he's travelling to New Zealand in early October for Joseph Parker's training camp for the Junior Farr fight. So if he's coming back to New Zealand, because Kevin Barry is a New Zealander, he lives in Las Vegas, and that's generally where Parker has gone for his training camps. But that would suggest, though, if he's coming in October, that the fight is probably going to be scheduled for the end of November or early December, somewhere there or thereabouts. But we'll have to see. I mean, it seems like this is as far along as they've ever got, and we're sort of haggling over gloves now. So, yeah, potentially an announcement soon. And just remember these sorts of issues, there may not be as much there as really sort of put out in the public, because this could actually be part of the pre-build-up. Eddie Hearn has reaffirmed that Anthony Joshua vs Kubrat Pulev is looking likely for December, specifically December the 12th. He says, yes, December 12th at the O2 is the plan for AJ. And the Pulev side, via John Wirt, who is of Epic Sports and Entertainment, which co-promotes Pulev, says, "We're happy that the fight appears to be back on track and we have a new date and site. There's still some tweaking to do on the contract, but we're optimistic it should be concluded this week." And realistically, if they are going to be making that fight and having it in 2020, it's getting to the point where you'd like to announce it, and obviously guys get it to training camp and such. So I guess watch this space. But we've been talking about this one basically all year now, so hopefully it is concluded and a date is locked in, because it is one of these things with some of these upper end fights for titles. The division starts to get held up if these fights are pushed back and back and back. And someone who'd like to fight for a title, and I'll cover this off in another video regarding his WBO ranking and increasing in the latest update, Daniel Dubois, who is now the WBO number 2, is prepared to fight Joyce with or without fans. He says, "I'll fight him anywhere. As long as there is a referee and everything else is in order, I'm ready." And he has had discussions with the UK government on this. But in terms of a closed-door fight, he says it's something we have to look at. For that, the boxers would have to take less money, and you know what the answer is going to be. From their perspective, the two fighters, it's not making them any lesser opponents, whether there is a crowd or not. We want to get bums on seats. And rounding out this heavyweight news mashup video, Browne is considering bare knuckle boxing. So he's made a couple of posts in recent days, and in this one he talks about Shannon Briggs.
Hey, Don. Thinking about it more and more about the bare knuckle boxing. One thing I was thinking is that Shannon Briggs can't box anymore. They won't give him a license. He's getting too old, all that sort of stuff. But apparently he has signed a deal with bare knuckle boxing, so possibly get a 3-fight deal signed with myself. 2 warm-up style fights to get my name out there a bit more, get people more interested, all that sort of shit, and have the 3rd fight with myself and Shannon Briggs. Me personally, I think that's one hell of a fight, one hell of a build-up as well, and good for everyone, all the fight fans, both MMA, boxing, across the board, all the bare knuckle people as well. So myself and Shannon Briggs, 3-fight deal. What do you think? Let me know.